Hey, it's me, Jetski, and today we're talking about Sonic Dream Team. Now, I know Sonic Dream Team has been out for a hot minute now, but, you know, I haven't been around as much lately. I took a pretty long break from YouTube, but now that I'm back, I still want to give my thoughts on the game overall and what I would rate it. Before we start, though, I will have to ask you to please like and sub, as it really helps out the channel. Now that I'm back, I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers sooner than later. Also, I should preference how I'm going to set this video up. I'm going to first go over all of the gameplay and the story, and let's hop right into the video. Now, starting off, we're going to talk about the gameplay of this game. Now, there's only really 3 character types, despite there being 6 characters. The first of all is the speed characters, which are Sonic and Amy, flight characters, which are Tails and Cream, and the strength characters, which are Rouge and Knuckles. Now, for me, I had the most fun with the speed characters, because I just felt like they were the most fun to control. The only problem I had with the speed characters was the physics were a little off. You can tell they definitely capped Sonic's speed at a certain speed, which sucks, but theirs is the boost there, so that really helps it out a lot. It's definitely the most fun with them. I find these levels almost being like collectathon kind of levels, because most of the time you have to go around and find little keys to get to the next little area, kind of like 06, you know, where in like Radical Train, for example, you had to go hit the switches so the train didn't explode or something. It was kind of like that, except, you know, less intense. The next characters are the flight characters, and these are the characters that I absolutely had the most problems with. That flight is terrible, man. I dreaded every time I had to play with Cream and Tails, especially Tails. Most of the time I chose to play Tails because, you know, it's Tails. But he's terrible in this game. Yeah, no, there is like absolutely no momentum or speed to his flight at all. It is genuinely awful. Like, this is genuinely, I think, the worst Tails has ever controlled in a 3D game. And that's saying something, because Sonic 06 exists, and a lot of people have complained about those controls, but honestly, I think this makes 06 look like Jesus in comparison. Those controls for Tails in Dream Team are just not it. You know, I think the biggest missed opportunity with them is that you can't gain any speed at all, and he drops like a rock. And he goes like 2 miles per hour in the air too. It's really not worth playing as him at all, especially if you have the choice. I'll say this though, Knuckles and Rouge are pretty fun in this game. They're usual, you know, like treasure hunting, crawl around on the stage and look for something. You know, standard, you know, Sonic Adventure style Knuckles gameplay. He controls a lot like those games too, except, you know, he still has like the speed cap too, just like Sonic does in this game. I'll say that's pretty much my biggest problem with this game, is it feels very limited in what you can do. Despite there being great level design, I think the level design in this game is really good. Honestly, I'd argue it's probably too good for this game. Not to say the control in this game is bad or anything. No, it's far from it. It's pretty good, honestly. I wouldn't say it's as good as like Sonic Frontiers or especially Sonic Adventure. It doesn't even come close to those games. But it's still pretty good for the most part. You do definitely feel like you have 100% control of Sonic. The only problem is, like I said, the speed cap. It definitely hurts this game. I do feel like this game could have really benefited from like a spin dash of some sort. I really think it could have helped a lot in terms of replayability. Of course, there is the boost, and the boost works very well in this game. You collect little lightning bolt things to refill the boost gauge. However, I will say the boost gauge goes out pretty quickly in this game. It's a lot like Sonic Frontiers. However, in Sonic Frontiers, you have to actually like slow down to let it rebuild itself, where this is more like Generations and Colors, where you collect something and it rebuilds itself. Really, the boost in this game is just kind of like a bizarro mashup of Colors and Generations boost and Frontiers boost, and they kind of slapped them together, because if you do stop, your boost meter will actually refill like it does in Frontiers, and it doesn't do that in Colors and Generations. I'll say this, the flight for Knuckles and Rouge feels a bit tanky, but it's really not too bad. I didn't have any problems with it. It's very, you know, fluid for the most part, a bit tanky, like I said though. It's not like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 levels of good in terms of flight, but it does the job good enough, you know. Now, I know I've already mentioned it, but I'll say it again, the level design in this game is great. In fact, I would argue that it completely carries the game on its back at all times. This game would not be as good as it is without the level design. I think the level designers for this game probably need a raise, man. It's really good in this game. Like, for example, early on it starts out pretty basic, but as you go along in the game, they do a lot of really trippy challenges. Like, you have to run along the walls, and you have to run like upside down and do these little challenges to get somewhere, and you also have to like explore these little levels looking for keys and stuff. Really, the level design in this game is super good. It feels super open, despite really not being that big. like I said, it feels super open. Now, in terms of boss fights, this game is pretty basic, you know, it's not even close to like Frontiers level of boss fights or really any other Sonic game. It's just kind of, you know, like the basic kind of boss fight. I'm not saying it's like Forces basic, but it's pretty basic overall. It's kind of like a Lego game boss fight, really. All in all, that's pretty much all I have to say about the gameplay. It's pretty good for the most part. There's a little few things that I think is pretty bad, you know, but that's pretty much all I have to say about it. On to the music. Okay, so most of the time I wouldn't dedicate a whole section of a video to the music. However, in this case I feel like I have to because there's always been such a high bar for Sonic video game music ever since it really came out, to be honest, in 1991. It's always had really good music. It's always had a great soundtrack, whether that be 1, 2, 3 Knuckles, the adventure games, Unleashed, Generations, the storybook games, Lost World, even Forces had a great soundtrack, and Frontiers obviously had a really good soundtrack too. But this game, it unfortunately does not have that great of a soundtrack. In fact, I think the whole sound design of this game is a bit lackluster. It's so bad that you can even notice that they reuse a lot of the sound effects from Sonic Dash. Yeah, it's not the greatest, and the music overall really doesn't fit with the vibe of the level. Now, you can argue that cyberspace levels, you know, they don't have that either, but there's still a few bops in there. Here, there's almost none. They're all just the most generic sounding songs ever. It's a real shame that the music doesn't really fit this game because I think this game has such a cool aesthetic. I feel like if this game had a way better soundtrack and overall sound design in general, like original actual sound effects, I think this game would be like 10 times better. However, that's pretty much all I have to say about the music in general. On to the story. In terms of story, I wouldn't say this is really anything out of the ordinary, really. It's not anything crazy like Sonic Frontiers or the adventure games. If anything, I would compare it to like something like the storybook games or Sonic Heroes. It's very like lighthearted and not super serious, and there's not really a lot of serious moments. I will say there's a lot of things that are kind of unique to this game, like you can have like alternate story paths. Like, for example, there's this one scene where Cream wants to hang out, and everybody's like, no, don't do that! And you get to choose to play either by Tails or by Cream. I've chose to play Tails because I'd rather play Tails than Cream, to be honest. But there's that, and there's different ways the story can play out, although most of the main events are the exact same. Basically, the plot goes like this. Eggman wants his dreams to come to reality, you know, taking over the world and all that, but his dream isn't pure enough, so he has to feed his dreams through Cream, and he does that by kidnapping her. However, it doesn't work out so well for him, and he gets trapped in the dream world. Sonic and company, and for some reason Rouge is there too, I don't know why, I guess she's a part of the main cast now, show up and find Cream trapped, and also Eggman trapped in the dream world. They do some stuff, and this weird sheep creature named Arium takes them into the dream world, and they get stuck as well. However, Sonic slowly frees all of his friends, and they go on to try and stop Eggman from succeeding in taking over the dream world. It's pretty basic and bare bones plot, like I said. It's not really that crazy. It's a fun little Sonic plot, you know, pretty average for a Sonic game, really. I don't really have any problems with the story itself. I more so have a problem with some of the actors involved in the story. And don't get it twisted, I love Roger as Sonic, and he's really good here too. And Cindy Robinson is pretty alright, and you know, Colleen O'Shaughnessy might as well just be Tails at this point. So I don't have a main problem with any of those three. Knuckles is fine too. My biggest problem is with Rouge and Cream. Rouge does not sound like Rouge in this game. It sounds so weird. It doesn't feel like Rouge. Like the first time I heard it, I was like, what? That's what Rouge sounds like? Man, it just didn't sound right. It didn't fit at all. Honestly, I would have preferred her like Generations actor over this one. And I'm not saying like it's awful or anything. It's just like it doesn't fit, man. It's so wrong feeling. You know, I'm used to how Rouge sounds. And if she sounded a bit different, like the SA2 Heroes actor, I forget what her name is. Lonnie Manila, that's what her name is. If it sounded more like that, I would have been fine with it, you know, not over the top like Sonic X's actor and Generations actor, but it just doesn't sound right. It's too high pitched, you know. It just does not sound right. Cream's actor too, man, is not it. Cream just is so annoying in this game. Her voice is like nails on a chalkboard. It's not very good, man. I know you could argue that's what she sounded like in Sonic X, but honestly, I prefer her Sonic X actor any day over this actor. I'm sorry, it just does not sound good. All in all, it's a pretty decent Sonic story. That's pretty much all I have to say for that. On to the conclusion. In conclusion, this is a pretty cool little Sonic game. It's not super serious or anything. I think the gameplay overall is pretty good, except for the flight characters. Hot garbage right there, but everything else is pretty good in terms of gameplay. Graphically, I think this is cool. The music is very lackluster, and just sound design overall is pretty lackluster. The story is pretty neat, like I said. Overall, I'd say if you have an Apple Arcade account, you should definitely try it out, and if you don't, well, you might want to consider giving it a try out. Really, it's free apart from the Apple Arcade subscription. Overall, that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. If you guys liked it, could you please like and sub? It really helps out the channel. We're trying to hit 500 subscribers by the end of this upcoming year. It was Amiya Jetski, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.